How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Dan. Today I'm at Physique Fitness in Tring, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to deadlift. Once again, welcome back, guys. Hope you're all doing fantastic. And as I say, this is my how to deadlift video. Now, not many of you will know, I already did a how to deadlift video 5 years ago when I first started YouTube. But back then I only had a stonking 40 subscribers. There weren't many people to see what I was sharing. And my opinion and methods on the deadlift have changed over the years. So this is my revised version for 2022. There's also a hell of a lot of bad information on the internet, people giving bad advice or making the deadlift overcomplicated. So I feel it's my obligation to share what I know and help you guys learn this fantastic exercise. So first of all, what is a deadlift? The clue's in the title. It's an exercise where we are picking up a dead weight off of the floor, hence the term deadlift. The exercise on the surface is pretty simple. We're using a barbell and barbell weights and just picking it up off the floor. It's a fantastic exercise for strengthening your legs, glutes, core and grip, and it's for everyone. This is not just for advanced lifters. Beginners can really benefit from this fantastic exercise too. Another reason I encourage beginners to give the deadlift a go is because it's far superior to machines. You're lifting a real weight through space against gravity, practicing your balance, and it has real world applications to your daily life to make you just a more resilient, strong individual. So one huge myth I want to get out of the way right at the beginning is that deadlifting is bad for your back. Deadlifting will actually strengthen your back if you use the proper technique and use appropriate, safe weights. Any exercise can be dangerous if you use inappropriate, very heavy weight. You're just as likely to injure your arms if you try and do a bicep curl with a dumbbell that's way too heavy for your own good. Carrying on from that, deadlifting is usually seen as a sport in the realm of powerlifting, where the powerlifters are lifting as much weight as humanly possible. And even when you compare those guys, their injury rate compared to other sports such as jogging, American football, CrossFit, the injury rate in powerlifting is lower than all these other more regular sports. And that's with the guys that are at the top of the level trying to lift as much weight as possible. For the average gym goer who's just lifting for fun and not pushing to the absolute limit, you'll find the deadlift is a perfectly safe exercise. Now, if you don't know me, you might be thinking, why should you listen to Dan about how to deadlift, just an average guy in my coffin feeder t-shirt? What does he know? So I'm not an expert and I'm not a coach by profession. However, I do have over 10 years experience lifting, and I have competed in many bodybuilding shows, powerlifting competitions, strongman competitions, and done pretty well for myself. And specifically with the deadlift, my best lift to date was a 260 kilo deadlift at a body weight of 80 kilos, which makes it over 3 times body weight deadlift, drug-free, which is something I'm very proud of. So that lift actually won that powerlifting meet. I got myself a nice little gold medal and then went off to place a respectable 4th place at the UK finals. I've also worked with some top stellar coaches during my lifting career, being Alberto Nunez of Team 3DMJ and Johnny Candito. So I really do have a lot to offer in terms of knowledge of how to do the deadlift. And sure, there are dudes that are a lot stronger than me, but something I really enjoy doing is teaching. That's why I'm here. So let's get started. So we've already spoken about what a deadlift is. Now I'm going to show you what we're going to use. So we're using a regulation length barbell and standard size weightlifting plates. And the reason for this is when the barbell is loaded with standard 20 kilo plates, the bar is at the correct height for a traditional deadlift. If it was lower, you'd find the exercise harder. We'll talk more about that later. Other variations of deadlifts are fine, such as dumbbell deadlifts, but today I'm teaching you how to do a conventional barbell deadlift. So to start with, there are 3 types of deadlift. The conventional deadlift, where your feet are narrow with your hands outside of your legs. The sumo deadlift, where you take a very wide stance and your hands are in between your legs. And the Romanian deadlift, where you lower the weight but don't quite set it down on the floor. This is more for bodybuilding purposes. But today, as I say, we're going over the conventional deadlift. So before we talk about anything, it's important for us to talk about what to wear on your feet. When you're picking up a deadlift, you want to transfer all of your energy down into the floor. So you either want to be barefoot or wear flat shoes so you don't lose any of that force transfer. So today I'm either going to be in my socks or wearing these flat weightlifting gorilla wear boots. So trainers can be comfortable, but there's two problems. First off is they're usually a little raised, and the further you are away from the bar, the harder the lift is, and they usually have a cushioned spongy sole. This makes the power transfer harder. You may as well be trying to lift the weight standing on a bean bag or a big bouncy ball. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to show you this 5-step how to deadlift routine, and then we'll recap over it at the end. So first things first, you need to find your stance where you're going to be strongest. For most people, that's going to be with legs and feet directly under their hips. A cool trick you can use to find your stance is to do a box jump. Just go up to a box, naturally jump onto it, and take a look at what your stance was. This is typically going to be your strongest position because it's the stance your body naturally takes to be the best at performing. Okay guys, so once you're happy with your stance, step 1 is to approach the barbell and position your shins 1 to 2 inches away from the barbell. This should put the bar roughly over the middle of your foot, not over your toes. Step 2 is to bend over and grab the barbell without thinking about it too much. It's very important when you grab the barbell, don't move the barbell. At this point, I'm going to quickly talk to you about the 3 different grips you can use to hold the deadlift. Grip 1 is the double overhand, where both hands are pronated or palms facing down. Grip 2 is the mixed grip, where one hand is pronated and the other hand is supinated. And grip 3 is what's called the hook grip, where you will wrap your thumb around the bar and then your fingers over your thumb, which is separate to what we would normally do, which is grab the bar with our fingers and then thumb over the fingers. So why would we use these different grips and what are their benefits? So the double overhand grip is my favorite grip because it's the best way to max out your strength and development of your forearms, and it also keeps all of your back musculature even for bodybuilding purposes. Now the mixed grip is useful because with the double overhand, you'll get to a certain weight where the bar is too heavy for your little hands and it will roll out of your fingers. Supinate one hand, it stops the bar rolling so you can lift a lot more weight. It's important when you use a mixed grip to warm up your bicep, the supinated hand, just to prevent any injuries. And lastly, we've got the hook grip. It's the same principle as the mixed grip. It stops the bar rolling out of your hands because you clamp your thumbs in place with your fingers and then the weight of the barbell. It can be quite painful and uncomfortable. It's not for everyone. I certainly don't like it. I just stick with the mixed grip. And lastly, we have straps, where the straps hold onto the barbell, but more on that later. So step 3 is to, without moving the barbell, bend your knees so that your shins touch the barbell. As you do this, this is going to lower your hips and put you into your very own unique, correct starting position. If you followed step 1 and step 2 correctly, you should notice that your armpits are above the barbell and your head and shoulders are sort of in front of the barbell, but your armpits are directly above the barbell. This is where you want to be. It's also important to understand that everybody has a unique, different starting position. Some people's hips will be higher with a flatter back, some people's hips will be lower with a more upright back. This is fine. Step 4 is a 2-part step, which is to flatten your back and feel heavy in the hands. So to flatten your back, I like to use the mental cue, twist your hands into your pockets. Of course, you're holding the barbell whilst you try and do this, but trying to twist your hands into your pockets is going to help straighten your back out and engage all of your back musculature, keeping you stiff. And secondly, I said feel heavy in the hands. What do I mean by this? Essentially, you're pulling on the bar to pull slack out of the bar. And this is important because rather than being loose, we're engaging everything we're going to be using. We're putting some force through our legs and our core and our back and then into the barbell, ready to pull rather than being loose. One quick point I want to touch on and reassure you guys about is a lot of people overly obsess about having a flat back. Think more stiff back. It is okay to have some slight curve in your back, especially the upper back. It's movement of the spine that we want to prevent, not lifting with a rounded back. So rather than thinking flat back, think more stiff back. And whatever position your back starts in, try and maintain that position throughout the lift. Okay, so step 5 is to brace your core and execute the rep. So what do I mean by bracing? It is quite important, we'll touch on it later. Essentially, you're taking a big breath of air into your belly and tensing your midsection to give you a rigid core. Imagine the difference between being a flimsy piece of string or a solid metal ruler. Which would you rather be if you're trying to pick up a heavy weight? Once you're braced, start the pull by driving your legs into the ground. Once the bar is moving, Pull the bar in towards your hips whilst at the same time pushing your glutes forward into the bar. Lock out with your shoulder blades at the top, steady the weight to show that you have control, and then return the bar to the floor in the same path that you took. You don't have to do this slowly. Think controlled drop. If you ever are going to injure yourself doing a deadlift, it's lowering a heavy weight too slowly. So there you go, congratulations guys, you did a deadlift. So let's quickly go back and recap what we did. Step 1, set up 1 to 2 inches away from the barbell. Step 2, naturally bend over and grab the barbell. Step 3, bend your knees so that your shins touch the barbell. Don't move the barbell. Step 4, flatten your back and feel heavy in the hands. Step 5, brace your core, execute the deadlift. Drive your legs down into the floor, pull the bar in towards your hips and your glutes forward into the bar. Lower the weight in the same path that you picked it up. Okay, so there you go guys, those were the 5 steps that I use to teach a deadlift. So now I'm going to chat to you guys about some common problems, go back over some of the things I said, and then some of Dan's tips. So first thing to revisit, bracing your core. Now this is important, so what is it? The technical term for this is the Valsalva maneuver. What we're doing is we're inhaling deeply at the beginning of every rep, getting a big belly full of air and using that to create internal pressure to give you a stiff core. So take a big breath in, squeeze your abs as if someone was about to punch you in the stomach. So you're bracing for an impact. So to lift up a heavy weight, you need a strong core. As I said about the string metal ruler analogy, you want to be a solid rod so that all of the power you're transferring through your legs goes up through your body, back down into the barbell, and you're all one solid machine lifting that way. You can use a lifting belt to help you with bracing. Now, a lot of people get this wrong. They think that the lifting belts hold you together and strap you in. This isn't the case. What you do is put the lifting belt on slightly looser so that when you do get that big breath of air, you can expand your belly against the belt and it helps you create more pressure inside you. It's not the other way around, the belt holding you together. So when you'd use a belt, I like to lift most of the time without a belt. It helps you train better and become stronger yourself. And then I use the belt for when I get really heavy and I do need some assistance. And I recommend you guys do the same. Next thing was feel heavy in the hands. So let's explore this a little bit better. So the other way to talk about it is to take tension out of the bar. And the reason for this is the opposite would be yanking the barbell. You see a lot of people will start the deadlift by doing an explosive yank and then pull. This just isn't the best. A yanking motion is very explosive and it's good for ballistic movements like throwing an American football or sprinting, but the deadlift is too heavy. You can't ballistically pull it and throw the deadlift up in the air. So it's more like running as fast as you can into a wall and then suddenly stopping. So learning this method was a game changer for me. You pull the tension out of the bar and you engage all of your musculature rather than yanking, and then you're much more prepared and ready to use all of your body to transfer all that power and pull without hitting any sudden resistance. And if you do this properly, once you pull tension out of the bar, you should feel ready to explode. You should feel all of your muscles ready to pull straight away. You'll get pretty tired after a few seconds. So try this out, you'll see what I'm talking about. So another thing I touched on was lifting straps. Basically, lifting straps are for when the rest of your body is too strong for your grip and you can't hold onto the barbell. So the strap wraps around the barbell, holds onto the weight rather than your hands. So when would you use this? You'd use these when you can't pick up the weight with your hands, but your body can. Personally, I'm not a fan of lifting straps. I prefer to just use the mixed grip and train my way up so that I can lift whatever I want. Also, be aware if any of you guys are ever interested in competing in a powerlifting competition, straps are not allowed. Okay, so next thing I'm going to talk to you guys about is deadlift variations. These are different ways of doing the deadlift and they're used for getting through sticking points. So sticking point will be a particular point of the movement where you have trouble with or you get stuck. So you'd use these exercises to train that particular troublesome spot of the movement and get stronger in that particular area. So the first variation is the deficit deadlift. This is where you'll stand on a slightly elevated surface to make the bar essentially be lower. This is useful for people who struggle to lift the weight off of the floor and it emphasizes using your legs and quads a bit more. So what you're going to do is find yourself a small platform, maybe a weightlifting plate is useful. I'd recommend 1 to 2 inches, and then pull the deadlift as you usually would. You'll feel that the bar is a little bit lower and you're going to have to use your legs a little bit more. Moving up, the next variation is the paused deadlift, and if we look up on the body, this is for people who struggle right around the knee, they get stuck on the knee. So the pause lift is exactly how it sounds. You're gonna break the weight off of the floor, and once the barbells come up 1 to 2 inches, you're gonna pause for just a second, 1, 2 seconds, and then carry on with the lift. This is gonna train that portion you're getting stuck at right around the knee. The next variation is rack pulls. So this is at the top. This is for people who struggle locking out the weight at the very top. Now the rack pull is a love-hate relationship for me because it is the ego lifter's favorite exercise because you can lift a lot of weight because you don't have to move it very far. But I can tell you how to do it properly, so it is of some use. The rack pull is only useful if you start below the knee. So what you're gonna do is set the barbell up in a rack. You can load it up heavier than you normally would, and this is going to help you train the lockout at the top, but you do have to start below the knee. If you set it up above the knee, sure, you can put a lot more weight on, but you're not getting any more benefit than had you started below the knee or even doing a paused deadlift. Now the last variation is the Romanian deadlift. Now you would use this one for more hypertrophy purposes, bodybuilding purposes, which is useful for powerlifting. The more muscle you have, the more weight you can lift. This is essentially where we're going to be doing the same motion as a deadlift, but instead of returning the weight to the floor each rep, we're just taking the bar down to below our knees, keeping tension on our glutes and hamstrings the entire time. Okay, so we've gone over quite technically how to do the deadlift, guys, but something quite important if you want to give it a go is how and when should you do this in the gym and in your routine? How often should you do it? So everyone's different, everybody's program is different, but I can give you some solid basics to stick by. The first one is the deadlift is a very nervous system demanding exercise, especially if you're going heavy, and you really only want to be doing heavy deadlifts once a week to give your body and your nervous system the proper amount of time to recover and be ready to do it again. So when we're talking about sets of deadlifts, how many should you do? Once you've picked however many you're gonna do, you'll spread it across the week, and I would recommend 5 to 10 sets. So that would be 2 sets to 5 sets on one day, and then 2 sets to 5 sets on the other day. Now, if you do 10 sets a week, that is a lot, so test this out and see what you can handle. Now, next thing to do is talk about how many reps you should do. So there's a difference between training for strength and hypertrophy. So if we're talking about strength, you want to be hitting anywhere between 3 to 8 reps. And if we're talking about hypertrophy, you want to be doing anything from 5 all the way up to 15 reps. So you'll notice that there's a bit of crossover in the middle there, which is 5, which is why the program 5x5, 5 sets of 5 reps, is a really good place to start because you get the best of both, some strength gains and some hypertrophy gains. So on Monday, I might do 5 sets of heavy deadlifts, and on Thursday, I will do 5 sets of Romanian deadlifts. All right, so next I'm going to talk to you guys about some common problems. So the first problem is probably the most common problem, and that is hips rising too fast. So as soon as you start to pull, your hips shoot up and you're lifting with dead straight legs and a flat back. And the reason for this is weak quads or not using your legs enough, which is why I really emphasize starting the lift by driving your legs down into the ground. Now, the reason this happens is that for a lot of people, their quads and legs are weaker than their big, powerful glutes. So given the chance, our bodies will do what they want and they will take the path of least resistance. They will say, hang on a minute, these legs are way too weak to do this deadlift. I'm just gonna straighten them out and use my big, powerful glutes. So the problem with this is it's not a proper deadlift and it's not gonna lead anywhere good. It could lead to back pain. So you really gotta train that leg drive and emphasize using your legs whilst keeping your back and hips in the same position. Next problem will be the barbell hits your knees on the way up. And this is most likely because when you've set up, your hips are too low and your knees are in front of the barbell. If you follow step 1 and 2, like we spoke about before, you shouldn't find yourself in this position. If you haven't followed step 1 and 2, it's more likely that you have squatted down to the barbell, put your hips too low, and that puts your knees in the wrong position. So follow step 1 and 2 properly, and that should fix it straight away. Problem number 3, and this is an easy one. Some people will say that their back hurts when doing the deadlift, which doesn't help, reinforces the myth that the deadlift is bad for your back. The problem here is going to be that you're not bracing, so you are that loose floppy bit of string, or you're trying to use weight that is way too heavy. Easily fixed. Use appropriate weight. Take your time when training the deadlift and learn to brace and remember to brace. Last common problem, or rather just question, is not sure where to put your head, where to look. This isn't something to hugely worry about. When you're doing the deadlift, there's no weight loaded on your neck. You can look wherever you want. However, I suggest finding a fixed point on the floor to look at, maybe the corner of the wall, and just look at that point. This is going to help you balance, and it's also going to make sure you're not doing anything weird with your back by moving your neck around. Now I do want to say, now that we've gone over all these problems and I've told you the tips and techniques how to do the deadlift, it's important to understand that everybody's deadlift is different. These tips, these 5-step tips, are just a good starting point to help you learn the movement. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but stick with it, and it's just going to help you discover and refine your unique way of lifting. Me, for example, my lift is very different to how I've shown you here. I set up very fast and explosively, and I brace at the top of the lift before I bend down to grab the barbell. So next little bonus part of this video, I'm going to give you Dan's special tips to help you with the deadlift. Now, number one, anyone that's been in the gym for a little bit is a bit of a no-brainer, and that is chalk. Get chalk on your hands. It's going to help you grab the barbell, and the reason for this is pretty simple. As we're training, working out, we get sweaty, and once your hands get sweaty, you are screwed. I don't care how strong you are going to really struggle to hold onto a heavy weight. Get chalk on your hands. It keeps your hands dry and sweat-free. Number two is smelling salts. Be careful if you get a fresh new bottle, because these are hardcore. They will blow your head off. If you don't know what smelling salts are, it's mainly seen in powerlifting. It's ammonia. What you do is you smell it. It really just wakes you up and gives you a hell of a kick to the head to get you primed for pulling a heavy weight. Tip number three, and I wish I made it tip number one actually, I forgot this is my favorite tip that I actually apply to every exercise. And that is to use two-way force intention. So what do I mean by that? So if we're talking about the deadlift specifically, we're applying force, or the intention of force, two ways. So that would be driving our legs down into the ground and pulling the bar up. I like to imagine myself as a spring that is uncoiling. And honestly, I learned this technique from my coach, Alberto Nunez, and it was probably the biggest game changer in my lifting career. So if it was the bench press, it would be the same, pushing the bar up away from you whilst pushing your back into the bench. I'm telling you, it's a game changer. Try it out. It's gonna make you instantly stronger. Next tip, caffeine. So why caffeine? Basically, the deadlift is a very mentally demanding exercise. It's not the same as a bicep curl where you can just pick it up and start curling. You have to be geared up and switched on. You're using multiple muscles to pick up a very heavy weight. So of course, caffeine is a neurological stimulant. It's gonna help you get in the zone and switch on all your muscles to pick up this weight. And next tip, I don't know where we are, number 5 maybe. Anyway, listen to heavy metal. Listen to some rock metal. Any decent powerlifter listens to metal. I don't care what anyone says. Get your rock on. No one ever lifted up anything substantial listening to Arctic Monkeys. And the last tip I want to talk to you about is something I call laser focus. Now, I know a lot of time you will see on Instagram some people getting very emotional, angry and aggressive before doing a deadlift or something, and this might look cool for Instagram, but what I invite you to do is watch the International Powerlifting World Championships and see what these guys do. Before they lift, you won't see any shouting or screaming or emotion, you will just see laser focus. And that's what I encourage you guys to do when you step up to the barbell. Just try and be in the moment, focus, concentrate, really push to try and get that an extra level of concentration. That's where you want to be. And I'm not saying that sometimes a bit of aggression can help you lift and help with your workout, but you really want to make sure it's controlled aggression and you are in control of yourself and you have purpose. And the last tip is that aside from your actual deadlift, what you can put into your program is exercises to build more muscle. Now, the best way to get stronger at the deadlift is to do more deadlifting, but it is a fact that the more muscle you have, the more you can lift. So you would do various exercises to build more muscle. And the main ones I'm going to recommend to you are hamstring curls on a lying hamstring machine or a seated hamstring machine, leg extensions on a leg extension machine to build up your quads, hyperextensions on a hyperextension bench. This is really going to train your lower back and your lumbar. And lastly would be forearm curls. This is just going to build up a little bit of muscle in your forearms, which is going to help you hold on to heavy weight. And we did talk about Romanian deadlifts earlier, but we'll touch on it again. So Romanian deadlifts are good for building your glutes and hamstrings. This is really good for you girls that are looking to build a big old bunda. Okay, so I think that is it, guys. I think we've gone over everything. We've covered a lot of topics on my notes just here. I hope I haven't got it mixed up. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something about deadlifting. Feel free to ask me questions in the comment section and I'll get back to you guys. I want to say a huge thank you to Steve and Mark, the owners here at Physique Fitness. Thank you guys so much for letting me use the gym. This video wouldn't have been possible without you guys. And you guys that watched the video, hit like if you enjoyed it. It really helps me with the channel. If you happen to be new, subscribe. I'm making lots more content as the weeks go on. But for now, I'm gonna get a session in. I'm gonna pull some deadlifts. I'm gonna say goodbye to you guys. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Cheers.